astrally, and it's really interesting. So he'll talk about it. You could definitely do a quick Google of Mnemosyne if you're interested.
Yeah.
I will get the link to the Mnemosyne website to you before the interview. You can read up on their forums because that's where most of their posts and the Mnemosyne reference material is going to be. Because if you want to actually like study and like read what he does, like that's the best way to do it. Everything else would just be like adjacents, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are live.
Hooray! How long
We
have we been
did
live for?
it. Like 30 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah, I just turned it on.
Sup, bitches?
What's up?
Yeah,
Another beautiful day in the neighborhood.
For today's
trying
episode,
to teach-
we're going to have
I'm trying-
60 minutes of dead air.
No, it's not.
No, I'm just kidding.
You're gonna have 60 minutes of me trying to teach Jay and Rue how to say Yakate.
Yeah, say that again. So it's
Yakate. You gotta
Yakate.
say it with some spice. No, you're saying it too. You're just saying it like Yakate. No,
Okay.
you gotta like it's something you shout when you're like fucking excited. It's like the word fuck. You don't just go like you might go like you're not gonna go Yakate. It's like yeet. You know, you don't just go yeet. You go yeet. You know.
see.
You
Yeah,
gotta,
I'm a very
Yakate.
flat sort of neutral person. So even when I'm angry, I'm like, fuck.
Cheer. Cheer Yakate. It's a cheer. You're like,
Oh, it's a cheer. Yeah. It just sounds like Hecate to me.
I was just gonna.
All I hear is
It's a
Hecate.
Yakate.
You say
The funny
Hecate,
thing
and I
is-
hear Hecate. Like,
The
that's
funny
all.
thing is, the person who came up with it isn't even a witch, and her name is Katie. Not our Katie, another Katie that knows
Abby.
our Katie.
I was like, Katie
It's
made up a
Eli's-
word I didn't know about. How
You know
dare
Eli,
she?
right? It's his cousin.
Yeah, I played
Ah.
Overwatch with his cousin briefly.
Yeah,
I did not
his
get
cousin Katie.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, we were in a
that's
group.
the Katie I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yep.
we were in a group together.
She just like did really well one day. I think she got like a quad with her what was it, her ultimate, and she just screamed Yakate, and it
It
took
stuck.
hold, and now everybody screams Yakate. Eli also has another really funny word he says. I can't remember what it is. He saw it on a license plate, and it's like Mr. Chumbus or something like
Mr.
that.
Chumbus? That's
Oh
great.
my gosh.
Oh,
And now
shit.
we're saying like Chumbus or something like that. It's so funny. Like we just have random words that don't mean literally anything, but they're just fun to say.
I felt my inspiration behind my latest like gamertag change, my whole rebranding to Trash Daddy was from a dumpster company. So I get the feel.
Is there a dumpster company named Trash Daddy?
Yes. Yes, there
Correct.
is.
Oh my
I was dropping
fucking
off
God.
I was dropping off FedEx package for work. I had to go to the FedEx drop. I was just walking down and I was like, there's this big yellow dumpster with black lettering across it said Trash Daddy. Daddy
Now,
spelled
was it
the
with an
correct
I?
way. No, it was not with the
Okay.
eyes. That was my spin on it, right? So
That was your baby girl.
Right.
Oh, hi, Trash Daddy.
Trash
Ooh.
Daddy. And it was just so
Trash
fucking
Daddy,
funny to
I
me.
need
I
you.
was
I
like,
need
it
you.
stuck.
God. Don't make
It's just
Trash
like
Daddy
saying-
happen.
Because
Although
I'm
they're
daddy,
probably
but
gonna
I'm
make-
a broke daddy, so that makes me a trash
They're-
daddy.
They're probably gonna make Trash Daddy happen, and there'll be nothing we can do to stop it.
No.
You're fucking right.
Terrifying.
I'm gonna make merch with
over.
Trash Daddy on it. Then I'm get
Well,
sued.
it's okay because we're making Yakate happen, and Yakate is awesome. You know.
Oh, what's amazing is I have the ability to like put anything on a t-shirt. So like literally anything that you would want on a t-shirt, tell me, and I can make that happen. Because our website has the Squarespace has an affiliation with this company called Printful, which is a print-on-demand service, and the integration with the website is just like so good. So yeah, we could like make merch out of literally any fucking quote that we want to.
Also, you know what you could do for promotional material?
Mm.
You could make Witches Betwixt stickers that have like a link or a QR code on it that'll take them to the podcast. And then you slap the Witches Betwixt stickers somewhere and it's not graffiti. Because if you get like the glossy kind, they don't tear when you try to pull them off, the whole thing comes off.
Yeah.
So like it's not considered graffiti because it's not a permanent deformation of a surface, you know. Although cops can be cunts about it if they really want to be.
Yeah, it's funny because like Philly's like any
They're
other
pieces of human shit.
Philly's like any other urban area. There's always a sign. There's always like poles and shit like covered in stickers and posters, flyers and
Yeah.
stuff. But I've actually never I've never actually put anything on a pole, like as far as I can remember. But I think about it, I'm like, I'd be the one to get caught, quote unquote. I'd be the one to get in trouble.
You put up magic to do it, and you get better at it. Like stealth magic's a whole fucking like tree that you branch into. And also, Jay, you look like remarkably plain and nondescript.
I do.
You are the ideal type of person to get away from that. You already have so many passive buffs. Like you're a white, you're a dude, you got like glasses, and you look kind of like
Dorky.
nondescript. Like how would I describe you? How would I describe you right now?
Non-threatening.
Please. No, here's exactly how I would have to describe you. Like a white guy who's like what? You're like 5'7"?
I wish. I am
What are you?
5'1".
Okay. He's
I'm
a
short.
he's a short white guy with glasses, red hair, and a black hoodie.
That's me.
Wow, what a description.
What a description. He looks like a leprechaun.
How will the police ever track this man down? Exactly, right?
Follow the rainbow, you'll find me. That's
Do
where
you
my
have
pot of gold
descriptive
is.
tattoos?
I
Do you
have no
descriptive
tattoos. I have not a single
Zero.
tattoo.
Do you have brand name clothing that you're wearing?
Actually,
no.
yes, I am wearing a Blackcraft cult hoodie.
Okay,
It has
that's a lot
bats
more
on it.
trackable because that's a
Yeah.
very niche clothing brand, and that's probably what they'd go off of.
Yeah.
But other than that, you are remarkably nondescript.
It's
If you
funny,
took
I'm
that
pretty good
hoodie
at
off and
blending.
swapped it, you would like literally you already have points into like here's the thing that people don't understand. I had a conversation in the occult shop when I went in with my friend recently, and we were talking about Masons and how secretive they are and how they'll never give information away. And I've gotten information out of Masons in the past because they thought that I was a cis dude, and I pretended to be a Mason by like
Hilarious.
reading material of theirs that was stolen and just displaying Masonic
So
knowledge
they have
to
like
them.
no vetting system, like they ain't got like a
No, they do.
badge.
Nope.
They
Like,
totally
flash
do.
me your Mason badge. Like
They do have a vetting system, but it's not like for example, you have a Masonic ring if you're in person, right? But on the internet it blurs things because it's a new medium and you can fish for information on people, right? So there's this one guy I met a long time ago, and I pretended to be a Mason because I was on some really good websites before they got taken down that used to have texts of like anything you could read. This is like early enough where I could have read the Tibetan Book of the Dead for free and like every other thing, but I also didn't have the comprehension to be able to understand any of that shit yet. So it was like a useless resource for me because I wasn't going to be able to do that, right? And that book was on there at the time, and I could have been able to take advantage of it, right? But I didn't, so sometimes that's just the way she goes. What was I even talking about? I just had a huge stoner moment.
No, so you had me deep diving the Tibetan Book of the Dead now, because there is still a website called Sacred Text.
Yeah, Sacred Texts is one of the ones I used to use, but there's another one too that was like Occult Archive or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a very, very, very long fucking time, but it's just not there anymore. I think I remember Fish talking about it too. Fish and Varger, because like for some reason people love to hack occult text websites, right? So yeah. Shit, what was I talking about though aside from the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Someone help me.
We were so damn, I'm really trying to remember where any of this conversation went because I am also a little stony baloney myself. So I apologize.
Come
for
on
that.
now. It started so before the Tibetan death, whatever. Don't ask me for specifics. Y'all, you were, damn it. Now I forgot. I had just remembered, and now I forgot. Damn it. Well, I know the
It's like,
topic we were supposed to discuss was altars.
yeah, but I had a deep dive I was kind of getting into there.
Well, maybe something will come
It'll
up
come back
and
to you.
You know
we'll
what?
all
It's
remember.
funny too because we're gonna like re-listen to the episode and you're like, oh, this is the fuck what you were talking about.
I know. I wish I had like a rewind feature where I could just like listen to the past like 30 seconds live and then, but yeah, such a feature probably exists,
Well-
but I'm not paying for it. So
Only we had people in the lobby watching that could tell us.
Right.
we do have a viewer, but
Um,
I don't know if the viewer is. You have the chat open?
It's me.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's me.
I really wish I do have that resource now, though, because like I lost a lot when that went down, and everyone
You were
did.
talking about that website, Sacred Text.
No, that was me. I had
That was
I
a
thought of it,
reference
yeah.
that Jay brought up. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really can't remember where we were kind of going with that. I'm not sure. But did we want to talk about altars like that?
Just give me 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Dive in this website. I forgot. Like, this is always like my go-to. Sacred-text.com. Place is great. They have like so much shit that you can just read for free.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. It's where I found all my all the writings, like Plato's writings about the Platonic solids and stuff like that. That's where I found it all. And they even have a cult section.
Wow, I just smashed my bong in 2.
What?
It's a fucking
What?
no, it's a rubber bong, so it's okay.
Oh. I was
It
gonna say,
has
you have a
it
silicone
has
one. How'd it break?
It has a down stem. That's a down stem, and normally because it's got a little bit of resin on it, it's hard to put in. So you just kind of feed it in, and then you smack it on the bottom, right? And I was holding it by the top, and I smacked the bottom, and it just went kabloosh, and the whole bottom half of the bong fell out into the sink, and I was like,
Is it
yeah,
fixed now?
I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. It's
Okay.
just silicone. I was always talking about like being young and doing magic and learning shit, and like I don't know, I fucking forget. There's like sometimes really ceremonial concepts of magic and certain more private stuff will jump out of your memory when you're going to go talk about it, as opposed to like, you know how like you can always reference stuff that's scientific, or you can like describe it and someone can always find it.
Yeah.
You notice how like when you're having conversations about magic, you get like the mind warp moment where like literally everybody will forget what the fuck they were talking about, and it's like a spirit had come in and was just like, no, y'all shut the fuck up about this.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, like, I think it's just like I'm too high to talk about things, or I just forget. But sometimes I really
3
have to wonder
separate
if I
people.
have like ADHD, because like I'll just be in the middle of talking about something and then I go on a completely different tangent and I cannot get back to where I was. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we were going to talk about what's in/on an altar, because we were kind of wanting to get back into talking about more occult stuff, but I'm also happy if we just talk about occult shit in general too.
Yeah. I don't know, like you bringing up that old website and about sacred text. I've also been watching The Adventures of Merlin, that old BBC show. And I've been thinking a lot about like how in that show, basically like the idea is like, you know, Uther has made magic. He's outlawed magic in Camelot, and you know, anyone who uses magic is basically killed. And so like it was this like stamping out of the old religion and like this rise of like new religion. They don't even really touch on Christianity in the show, but really like I don't know, they just kind of hint at like magic is outlawed and Uther's doing something new. But it made me think of like it makes me think of like the preservation of knowledge, the preservation of occult texts, and I think of how important it is to always have that, especially now where we're able to store information so easily.
Well, I mean, the thing is too, we're finding digital information storage isn't as easy as we thought, because like it's prone to corruption. Like we have to power it constantly. It can get hit by like magnetic surges. Like if we have a fucking what's it called, solar flare that's too big and it resets our systems and we lose a bunch of our data and it's not kept on like hard text, we're fucked. you know? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that we are still vulnerable to in the information keeping areas, you know? Like there's a quote that I've heard that fire is always an archivist's greatest enemy, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be other shit too at times, it seems.
Yeah.
Especially now that we're trying to fucking keep everything together in like digital spaces, you know?
Yeah, and I really think there needs to be like more of like a cohesive, like I really want the occult community over the next years, because we say that, you know, we've said this a lot on the podcast, that it seems like the occult witchcraft in general is kind of having like a renaissance sort of resurgence. And like now more and more people than ever are saying that they're witches or whatever falls into that general category.
You
And
know,
mm,
I have a very hot take on this, but I want you to finish your thought.
no, it just it upsets me that so much of the knowledge that we're trying to like hold on to, it's upsetting that so much of that knowledge has been corrupted or lost or is incomplete in a lot of ways, because we only know what we've reconstructed, right? Or what we've already found that's intact.
Yes, but also here's the thing.
Mm,
I really do feel like it's more than just a renaissance, right?
mm-hmm,
Because how do I put this? Um, it's a renaissance the same way that your phone is a renaissance on technology, right?
mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a temporary thing. It's a complete change in how we utilize and interact with something, right?
Yeah.
So in the modern days, we're seeing um the lack of stigma in countries against witchcraft in certain areas, which allows people to do what they've literally always been doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like a restructuring of the human experience, right?
Yes.
And since magic is your birthright and pretty much anybody can access it who puts in work and time to get there, it shifts things. It's not like a fad.
Right.
It's not like, you know, bell bottoms or
Right.
smartwatches. It's like being able to reclaim a vital piece of the human experience. And since it's intrinsically not outlawed, it's like being queer, right? And
Yeah.
that's why we liken the two so much. But like, if it's not outlawed, all the people who are going to be doing it anyways just fucking end up doing it. And we're seeing spikes and spikes and spikes, and people are wondering when it's going to end.
It's
But it may
not.
not, because it's like asking, when are people going to stop using smartphones? If we develop it into a way where everybody has access to something, why would people stop utilizing something that's of use to them and actually revolutionizes their life in a positive manner, right?
Right.
So I think the idea of treating it like it's a renaissance, like a lot of people act, is kind of a silly notion to me, because to me it's an evolution in human beings, you know, and our ability to allow ourselves to be what we've always been and have denied it out of fear, control efforts, or otherwise, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of like really what I was getting at is,
Yeah.
and I kind of use the term renaissance because this is the resurgence, like right now, like we're living
Hmm.
through it. And I'm trying to sort of like reframe human existence for myself, right? Like I don't know what I will get to see in my human lifetime, right? Like I don't know what I'm going to get to experience. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see, like, I don't know, some sort of organized someone has a phone near their microphone.
Hmm. What was
Who's
going
on
on with
there?
that? Yeah,
Who's on their phone?
I am on my
It
phone.
was me.
It was
Sorry.
okay.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, the
okay, I see
feedback
what you mean.
noise.
Phone was interfering.
Yeah. I was like, someone's on their phone. Um
I mean, like, I'm on my phone, but that's just because that's the
oh
only
yeah,
way that
like
I ever
you're
do a
using your
call.
phone.
Yeah.
But damn, what was I saying? Fuck. Oh yeah. So
We were talking about the Renaissance of magic and how you meant that, but you were just wording it differently.
right, yeah, and that's really what I was getting at, is like it's really cool to live through that right now, like to
Hmm.
watch this happen. In my lifetime, I don't know where we're going to get with it. Like, how far are we going to get? You know, is it going to ramp up super fast? Is it going to be a slow build? Are we going to see this big movement, or is it going to be more subtle? Um, these are the things that I'm trying to kind of focus on, and I kind of think about like what my role in that can be, because like no, I'm not a soldier, so I'm not going to be on the front lines of anything. You know what I mean? I'm not built for that, and so I've just been thinking about what I'm built for, and I think.
Well,
Mhm.
are you good at Banecraft? Because you can do soldier working through that. Just
Right,
saying.
I meant like physically, like out, like if there was
Yeah.
if there was any kind of like physical, like real war battle, something like that. No, I would not be that person.
You would shoot
because
a gun and you would break your arm probably.
right, like I'm just not built for that. But I am good at organizing and planning, and like all that kind of like behind the scenes work and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But the
man in the chair.
yeah, no, I think a lot about how. So like because we're going through this resurgence, this revolution, evolution, right? So there's a lot of chatter in the occult spheres. And we talk about this all the time, like all this infighting, the this, the that. You can't work with this thing unless you're this. You can't do this unless you blah. And I really, really hope that everyone can get on the same page and realize that magic is magic. Magic is not tied to any one specific religion. Magic is not tied to any one specific set of rules. It just is. And we have to learn how to manipulate it and work with it the way that we need to. And I think a lot about how much in this show Merlin, and like in my mind, I'm like, wow, like maybe our magic was at a point that we could just touch someone and like a cut would be healed. Maybe it was at that point, and we've lost that ability through, like basically the Catholic Church, like wiping everything out, burning everything, whatever. However it was lost, that information has been
Yo
lost.
ho ho.
I have
You
a
know?
couple things to say about that, actually,
It
if you're
just makes me
interested.
sad to know that like so much has been lost.
So, do you want to hear what I have to say on that matter?
Mm.
I've seen stuff done in person that I'm not going to describe the act of or who did it, that can be nothing short of described as miraculous, right? I've straight up seen it. I know it exists. It's not what we normally get to hear about because of the massive effort put into the concealment of magic and gnosis.
Mhm.
But I've seen things done by numerous different people, in fact, that very much like defy odds, like defy all reason. I saw this one time where someone like literally was healed from like a limp where they practically couldn't walk to being able to run just by somebody washing and bandaging somebody's foot. And that's some fucking theurgy going on in that process, right?
Right.
Like, I've seen it. It's real and it exists, but it's not an external thing that limits you. It's an internal thing of building yourself up to getting there, right? It's just like training too, right? Like you don't run a marathon by just getting up and going and doing it. You can't do that. No. You got to jog a little bit. And if you're not even good at jogging, you got to do jumping jacks. If you
Mhm.
can't even do jumping jacks, you got to do sit-ups or push-ups. If you can't even do those, then you can like do the elliptical machines, right? Because those are designed for people who have weight, who like don't want too much pressure on the joints, who actually need to get in some exercise. Like there's always a tier system of breaking yourself into any practice, right? And I think that's kind of where a lot of magic practitioners go wrong, is they don't stretch and build their magic muscles. They expect to inherit them because of the amount of Western media that really talks about, like, the chosen one who comes in with the abilities and they get it, and like I've watched a lot of media analysis, and it's a very Western thing, whereas opposed to like in Asia, for example, a lot of narratives are that great power comes through very long, dedicated hard work and practice, right?
Yes.
Like if you think about it, how many stories have you seen where somebody is the absolute best, and it's not because he was good, in fact he's the less talented person, it's because he worked fucking harder, or like she was more dedicated and always showed up, despite not being the best. And like the story that always gets told in that area very often is that hard work, discipline, focus, and like willpower will overcome talent almost every time, you know, and I actually really do agree with that because I've seen that happen, right? So it's magic is just like anything else, and like there's a process about it, and if you're in the camp of like not even believing it, then proving it to yourself is part of the process of gaining your own power, right? And like
Yes.
that also kind of ties into an altar space, right? Because to some witches, they really do use an altar as like an external manifestation of their internal. Like
Or like
some
a
people will
focal
do,
point for their
yeah, that's
power.
what I was gonna say, or to raise energies and focus their essence of themselves, right? Like there's several ways you can do an altar, and we're kind of gonna dive into this now, I guess. You can do what I do, where I have a general purpose altar, and the general purpose altar is set as a external manifestation of me. So the messier my altar gets, the worse I am doing because I do not have the energy to clean it up. Um, the more connections I make, the more gift items I get, the more magic items I find, the more I have to put on my altar, right? So at the point in my life now where I am, my altar can only be described as clutter bitch as the aesthetic, because there's so much stuff. I have like coyote canine teeth, and like here's an example. You know how people do the water cups on their altar?
Mm-hmm.
I've started doing two, and I do them in the elements of hot and cold, and I go really fucking next level when I do this. So when I like change my water, I wash both cups out. I take the hot cup and I boil some water, but it's not meant for heat, this cup, so I don't quite boil it all the way, right? And then I take the cold cup and I fill it with ice, and I put a bunch of mint in it. And then the hot cup gets chili flakes, right? And then the cold water goes into the cold cup and it sits there with ice, and it goes on the north side of my altar, because my altar is facing where the left and right is right's north and south is on the left. So the hot cup goes left because of my position in the world, right? South is where it's hotter. That's where the sun transits. I would reverse it if I was in the under hemisphere, because a lot of this is, for me, is about connection to the land that I'm on. And then the ice cup goes on the right, like I said, and the hot cup goes on the left. And the hot cup will literally brew the chili flakes into fucking spicy water that's like red tinted, and like the mint will cold brew steep over time into like a slight green tint, and then you come back to it like a day later, and you have like these really two cool different colorations to your water, and they also have the intrinsic elements of hot and cold in like an herbal format distilled into them using their separate methods, right? So one is done through cold brew, one is done through hot brew, right? So it fucking pops off, and every time I do it, like I just feel so energized, and like it's almost like my spirits are like, oh, she's getting it, you know? Because you can always kind of take it, and you don't have to, right? But this is something I learned from my friend Mandrake, that you can always kind of take it to that next level, right? And sometimes it's about knowledge, and sometimes it's about energy and spoons. Like sometimes you just don't have the spoons to do a super dedicated altar. I completely understand that, right? But like my friend also has so much spoons for magic, their entire house is an altar. I'm not shitting you. Their entire house is an altar. It's actually an apartment, but you walk in, and the trouble is where finding places to sit. Like there's spaces at the counter, there's like spaces dedicated in ritual space for sitting. Everything else, literally every other fucking item, is like altar space, and I adore it. And it's like witch goals, but I know I will never be the type of practitioner who could like keep up with a space like that, right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, you have people who make their entire life an art form in their magic craft, right? And that's totally good and valid. And then you got some people who have a wooden shelf that they have like stapled to the wall, and they got some cloth on it, and they got some cool rocks, and they got a candle, you know? That's legit. Your altar is representation of you and where you're at with it, right? So if you don't want a complex altar because that's not you, you really shouldn't do one, right? And if you want a complex altar, or like an intricate system where like your entire house becomes like a dedication space or like a magical bunker, you should really do that, you know? Like it's really like magic crafting the environment that you live in on some level. You know what I mean?
I'm like looking around my house. I'm like, it's not quite like every space is an altar, but like
I was just counting in my head, no freaking lie. Like I was like, okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least. There's 5 altars in this house.
I will
Currently.
say I do quite like living in the house that I'm in now because there's more practitioners per capita than any other house I've lived in. Like
Yes.
there's one person who straight up does magic and like does herb gathering, and my friend was commenting on how much they loved all the herb baskets because like my one roommate Lizzie is like next level on herbs and like always finds them and has like not bundles, like bushels,
wow.
right, of like herbs, and you're like, holy fuck. And then the other two roommates are very spiritual. So like you'll find them like they'll smudge or they'll burn incense. And they have like Palo Santo, and they're not using it in appropriative use, which is great. And like we have like a little we have a house altar kind of that's like right above our hearth. Then we have like one that's kind of more of like a beauty altar in a different room. Then we have our what I can really only describe as like the smoke offering altar, because like I have a bunch of smudge equipment laid out there. I don't have my personal smudge equipment like my shell or my feather there because I don't want those getting damaged. But I keep those in my medicine chest actually. But like I have one out for like my roommates to use if they want to. It's like a nice kind of pink abalone shell, and there's like a goose feather with it, and like some sage. So yeah, we kind of have like different stations of altars for that, and we're talking about like getting a nice cloth to put down on the one, and it's almost always on top of like the radiators because we live in like an old 1950s house. So we have like
What's up?
these ancient radiators that take up way too much space in a
Oh
room
yeah,
that if
but
you
they
got
are
rid of,
great
you could.
altar spaces.
Yeah, and like I would probably use the radiator in my room for more altar space if I didn't already have so much, like my entire room, like my what is it? Dresser can be an altar. I kind of had it for it, like as one for a little bit. My makeup table slash boudoir is my altar. Then I have like a bookshelf where I keep all my useful shit. That's like my TV stand. Um, like a whole nother altar behind me that's for all like my indigenous shit. And then like I got, um, I shouldn't say shit, my indigenous stuff. And then I got like, what is it? The radiator space that I don't use because there's just too much altar space in here. And then I have a little fucking it's almost like it's a incense altar on my left over here. There's like a fan, a little burn plate, there's like a holder, there's a glass of water to put it in, and like it's like that's the express purpose of that space. So like yeah, now that I think about it, a lot of my space is really dedicated to witchcraft and occultism and spiritual practices
It's kind
and
of interesting
what
how
have you.
it like how slowly but quickly it takes over your living space. Like it's like you think
Well,
it's slow, like it's kind of slow because you like acquire an
it has
item
to be.
here and there, but then like all of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Like when you really take a step back, after you've acquired all these things, you're like, oh, that really got involved in my like to think like I put things in perspective for myself. I
Mhm.
started with a shoebox. That was my first altar, was a shoebox. And everything that could fit on the altar was inside the shoebox. So I could like easily hide it basically. It was just a shoebox, very unassuming. But there's like a cloth and like a candle and like a couple little bits and bobs in there. But yeah, I started off with a shoebox. And then eventually I just kind of took this I don't know, we had some random table somewhere in the basement, and I just took a table from the basement one day when my parents weren't home, and I just stuck it in my room, and I just put all this stuff on it. And my mom hates knickknacks. Like, she just absolutely hates knickknacks. And she was like, "What is this knickknack table? Like, it's gonna collect dust." And I was like, "Oh, it's my witchcraft table." That's what I called it. And she was like, whatever. Like, she just couldn't even deal with me at that time. Yeah, but that's kind of how my evolution went. But yeah, I always keep things in perspective. Like I had a shoebox is where I started, and honestly, if a shoebox is all you need, throughout the course of your craft, I mean, by all means, that's all you need. It's just a shoebox full of things that you pull out, do a spell, whatever. That's fine. Or you could get to the point where I am, where I'm just looking around my house right now, and I'm like, okay, and that's a thing, and I guess that's technically an altar. I guess that's like, it's kind of
Yeah.
also funny about altars too, is like sometimes we think altars are this very like intentional thing, and like usually they are, but for me, sometimes I've tended to notice that altars kind of like, they kind of like take on a life of their own. They kind of evolve naturally. Like I had this table over here that had a house phone and an answering machine on it, and we've since canceled the house phone, and I've packed away the phone and the answering machine, and like it just kind of started to build into the ancestor altar.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like when the phone and the answering machine were still there, I put the statue of Iris that we have on it, and I was like, well, she's a messenger goddess, and it's near a phone, an answering machine, so that has to deal with like communication and the sending and receiving of messages, and so I put that on there, and then I was like, well, Iris isn't necessarily associated with ancestors or the dead or anything, but I was like, but she's a messenger goddess, so she should be able to deliver a message wherever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I started putting like pictures of the ancestors and stuff like that, and now it's our ancestor, and I'm like, oh damn, I'm quite proud of it.
I would say it's definitely one of our better witch achievements for sure. Also, like though I don't know how much it can compare to finding the table that I have for my altar, like literally walking into the first thrift store that like we ever went to together, and we were like, oh well, that's perfect. I
Yeah.
still have the same altar 4 years later.
That's another thing too. Thrift stores are amazing places for furniture. Like if you don't have a table or a space or whatever, they're really good resources for finding, especially if you like the aesthetic of like an old worn table or whatever your aesthetic is. I tend to
Rusty
I also
spoons.
love altar tables that have drawers, that like have at least a drawer
Yes.
built in, because for storage of stuff. Do you usually go for that, Sophia, or do you just like flat surface?
Altar space with drawers built in?
Yeah.
That's literally what my boudoir is. So I would be hard pressed to say no.
Yeah, like, and I just prefer it too. Like, it's really like, because even when me and Scott, when we were trying to form this initial coven years and years ago, I'm pretty sure the table that we got from, I think it was Goodwill, which somehow I carried all the way down. I don't know, it was really good physical accomplishment in my life that we managed to get this table. We didn't have a car or anything with wheels, and we managed to get this table all the way down to Scott's place from Goodwill. But yeah, I'm pretty sure even that had. So it was a bitch to look.
Damn. Yeah,
Also,
I like. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, I love the idea of, like, I talked to Diana Paxton about this, the God condo, as she calls it. Like, I love the idea of having like those cube shelves, or just any kind of shelving system of like each shelf is a different altar or a different dedication space. I would love to have something like that, but
For you
unfortunately,
true
every time I have a
dedicated
bookshelf, it's taken up by books.
For you true dedicated multi-pantheon people,
Yes.
get like a cube wall with each of your gods or goddesses, deities in there.
And then like you're just like going around to each cube, like, oh, and you get this, and then you get that, and then you get that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
really. Like, for you real weird types, go find an abandoned lot, right? Because you have to do this in abandoned industrial areas, not in your fucking house. But people don't read directions, anyways. Goetics. You're not supposed to ever do that in your house. If you've
No.
done it in your house, you're an idiot and you've done it wrong and you didn't even read your instructions. You're literally supposed to go find an abandoned industrial area or like a warehouse or like somewhere where you will not be disturbed and there are not other human beings. Like that's the fucking point of it.
That's the hardest part for
Anyways,
me about doing magic outside of my house is where can I go that I will not be fucking disturbed? Because the answer is
you
almost
have to
nowhere.
put in no. There are spaces. It's like anything, right? You have to put in the time and the work and the
And like
research.
scout it out.
You have to physically, I'm going to tell you this right now, if you want to find good places to do rituals, your best friend is to get high. If you're in a safe area to do this, don't do this if you're in like fucking an area where you're going to get assaulted or whatever.
Disclaimer.
And just go walk around and explore and check shit out, right? You got to be careful. Not every area is going to be the same for doing this, right? Like, but Toronto is pretty safe. I don't ever go into any like areas that people are living in, i.e. like homeless people. Like if there's an encampment in there, you fucking respect the space.
Well, yeah,
You
that's
stay
their
away.
home. That's
You
where
don't
they're
ask
living.
questions. I understand that. You understand that. Rue
Yeah.
understands that.
But
People
not
listening may not.
yes.
So
the
that's why
general.
I'm just repeating it.
Yeah.
You just leave them the fuck alone because all they want to do is just survive and like be treated with basic human decency. And if you can't like be on those same levels, don't even fucking go near them because it's not even fair for them. You should
Right.
absolutely stay the fuck away from them. But other than that, like don't put yourself in dangerous areas. Like don't go into the fucking woods by yourself in the mountains without a weapon. Just an obvious thing to say, but like if you're not from the mountains, it might not be obvious. We have two rules where I'm from. If you can't meet both of them, you almost never go into the woods, right? And there is a singular exception, and I will give you the singular exception. Here's the rule. You don't go into the woods alone, and neither of you go unarmed, okay? The only and singular exception is if you're going by yourself, you have GPS and a firearm. And then if you have a dog as well, you're good. If you got a dog,
Yeah.
GPS, firearm, and a cell phone,
And we're talking
and like
about
survival gear,
the woods.
you're set. I'm talking the fucking woods. I'm not talking like your city park.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, or not like I'm not talking like space in between city building areas where there's unclaimed green space either.
I can just
that ain't the woods.
picture someone walking into a city park dressed like fucking Rambo, and that's not what we're talking about.
The woods I'm talking about is like ones where you might run into a fucking literal monster that you think doesn't exist because you think indigenous people just make shit up.
Is that what like conservative, like right-wing witches do? Like they walk into the woods like dressed up like Rambo? You think?
I don't think there are.
Yes,
okay,
with their pink.
No.
pink
I'll tell you
camo
exactly
gear.
what conservative witches do. They go to mega churches and pray to their icons and give their energy through deity worship to people and god forms who do not fucking deserve it.
And then they wear pink
Just saying.
camo and go into city parks dressed like a pink Rambo.
And shoot squirrels.
You are on a kick about that, let me just say.
It's just that there's just so many guns in this particular city that we live in. It's just
that's why I
expect everyone's dressed like Rambo.
That's why I immediately dialed it back when I was like, just go walk around, check out places. And I'm thinking, like, in America, this will get you shot. This is advice for a Canadian.
That's like a lot of the struggle that I have is like the neighborhood that I live in is not great. It's not the worst, but it is not great. Usually if I go out and I'm gonna go walk down towards like where the train is, there's this little park down there, and there is a place that I really, really, really want to check out and try and do some magic. The only problem is this particular neighborhood that we're in has a very old Irish, Italian, Catholic founding, like the foundation of this neighborhood. And so there's a lot of old Catholic like families and churches and stuff like that. But anyway, there's this little garden down in this park down by the train, and it's just this nice little garden. It's a little fenced off area. It's got some plants, some stones, and there is a statue of the Virgin Mary in the middle. And I've always just been attracted to this place. I'm like, this is definitely a place of power. It doesn't matter whether whether it's Christians putting that power there, it's a power spot, and you can tell you're just drawn to it. And I've been wanting to try to do some magic there, but I'm like, I have to be careful with how I do it because it's in such an
Mhm.
odd area. You know, it's near the train, so it does attract, like, because like the homeless, they will sleep in the park at night, so it's like I don't want to really be there at night because I don't want to be stepping on anyone's toes. I also don't want anyone like bothering me when I'm doing anything. So I don't know, it's just really difficult. And then like to go down there during the day, you're like, well, it's broad daylight and it's also like highly trafficked. So there's people walking their dogs and people are gonna be like, hey, what are you doing? Can I bum a cigarette? Hey, can I get in? It's just like
Home
that's the
slice,
problem
I'm
that I
gonna be
have.
really fucking real with you.
Mm,
It's always gonna be it. Like, look, even though we were talking earlier about it's not stigmatized to be a magic practitioner,
it is.
um, just open practice magic will always be a danger,
Right.
regardless of what you're doing, simply because of superstition and
Mm-hmm.
bigotry, right? Like my friend and I have done open rituals at spaces, and people act very fucking weird when they come by and they
Yes.
see you like doing like hymns and chants and shit and having
Mm-hmm.
like bells and candles and like a circle, and people are like will freak the fuck out because they'll think they're in a horror movie or some shit sometimes, right? Like you can't ever truly anticipate how somebody's cultural programming, and I say that in like the Hollywood cultural programming sense,
Mm-hmm.
is going to take over. Or like if somebody's like an avowed Catholic or Christian, you're in a special danger. Or like if they're a conservative, that's another thing too. So like, yeah, it's not ever truly going to be safe experience, right? Like it's just like going out in a world where violence is somewhat normal. It's sad to say, but it's a truth about how we live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like violence happens so frequently in America that it's normalized, right?
Right.
So it's the caveats, right? So don't take all this with like a piece of like a word of caution, right? Like there's a reason goetics are kind of fucking dangerous, and it's not just the goetics, right? It's like what can happen to you even while you're going to try and find that space to do it, right?
Mm.
Like you got to be fucking careful.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wasn't particularly talking about Goetics specifically. I know I had kind of jumped off
No,
of
I
that,
know, it's
but
just
yeah.
this is what started from,
Yeah, but I
but
was just
that's
thinking
how
of
I reference it.
places outside to practice magic. You know, like it's so limited, especially in my particular area where I'm at. Especially
Hmm.
because, like, practicing. What am I practicing some magic right near the statue of Virgin Mary? Like instantly, you're just gonna get like you're a satanic, you know.
It depends. So here's the thing also, it depends how you dress it up.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
my
I
friend
could make
Mandrake,
it
I've
very
mentioned
low
before,
key and almost
some
look
of the
like I'm
stuff.
praying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. My friend Mandrake, who I've mentioned several times, some of the stuff they do is like Gnostic work, almost like Christian
Mm-hmm.
Gnostic or Catholic Gnostic stuff. So like it might actually sometimes like because sometimes it's like Io Hecate, mother of witches, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's like praying to Christ, literally, right? And so like you can do theurgic or like religious witchcraft in those spaces and
Mm-hmm.
get away with people thinking that you're not actually doing witchcraft and that it's just some type of like devotional practice. And I think that's why a lot of practitioners have also found like safety. And I don't mean this for like my friend individually, but like we do know that for a long time a lot of practice that wasn't outlawed was always Christian theurgy, right? Like you're fine to fucking get on your knees and prostrate for the saints, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's
But you're
interesting.
not, and it's the exact same shit. It's the exact same shit,
I
So I
think
don't really see a difference between the two.
I
Yeah, or
think
not, well, I do,
those
but like it's,
are
sorry, go ahead.
those are the books and courses and classes that we really need to see more of, especially as
Hmm.
witchcraft grows, is the like how to practice witchcraft inconspicuously. You know what I mean? Like how
Oh
to
God, you're asking me to reveal my entire craft because that's like what I'm fucking good at.
right, that's you know what I mean? Like how to practice it in a way that it is unnoticed and yet still effective.
I'm gonna be
Um
dead ass honest. You want to know what's the first thing you should look into is ninjutsu.
Hmm?
ninjutsu.
Ninjutsu. I'm not talking like fucking magic, like the actual art of the ninjas, which a lot of it is subterfuge, misdirection, psychology, understanding human behavior, how the human body works, and like just generalized methods of like how you can do shit, right? Like, remember how I talked about on the other episode, like people will treat you how you look? That's
Yeah.
a fucking tenet of ninjutsu, my friend. Like, if you look like a common beggar, no one's going to suspect you, and you're far easier to stab the rich man who passes by than somebody who looks like a psychopath and is wearing a bunch of armor. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
there's so many layers to it, right? And it's the art of subterfuge and misdirection and making something appear like it's one thing when it's actually another. Right! And this is what we were talking about earlier, shape-shifting. Oh my
Mhm.
God, it's finally come full circle. So, like, when I was talking about shape-shifting, with the lady in the occult shop, because
Yes.
I had learned some shit from the Masons, right, through those books
Yes.
that were on those websites. And
Now I'm remembering.
yeah, don't let me forget this time.
Yes.
So when we were talking about it, she's like, well, I'm not really a guy, so they're not gonna, and I don't really seem like I'm one of them, so they're not gonna give me knowledge. And I said, well, that's just a matter of a shape-shifting task. And then she like looked at me like I was making shit up, and the girl in the back who's younger like let out kind of like an astonished noise. She's like, did you just say shape-shifting? And I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah.
I say it like a what, why is this like really freaky to you, right? And they think it is, but it's not. Like, my friends, any trans person will tell you how easy it is to shapeshift. We've all done it. We've all been there.
We all
It's a matter
continue
of
to
how
do
you
it on a
present.
daily basis.
It's a matter of how you present outwardly with certain levels of mannerisms, body language, dress, opinions, statements, or lack thereof that give the exact impression of something that people think that you are that you might otherwise not be.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Right?
What?
No, I was just saying, little mic drop there. The way you ended it, it sounded like you needed a mic drop.
Oh, okay. I was just like, what? But yeah, like it's serious, right? Like, so if I want to look like Marilyn Monroe, I'll like cut my hair really short. I will have to be the type of person who has that type of face profile, right? You can't just like make up your way to Marilyn Monroe perfectly, right? And then you'll take steps through like makeup, hair, clothing, and mannerisms and voice practices to like mirror the behaviors until you can get to doing it. Because fuck, any autistic person can tell you how easy it is to learn behaviors to mirror to like fucking be something. And I think that's also why autistic people feel so aligned with shapeshifting, you know? So like, yeah, you can like literally change, like I can sometimes change my gender. I can't really do it now with like my long bleached hair because I'm like playing into an archetypal role right now. But you can like literally fucking bleach your hair and go, what is it? Oh wow, I didn't need to kill any of those people in this
You know,
game I
I
have.
have never been able to pretend to be female, though. Like, I've never been able to do it.
No, it's true.
You
And
know,
it
like, or
depends on you,
feminine
right?
in any particular way.
But also at the same time, you could shift through many different types of masculinity because you've had
Mhm.
to put it on, right? And you
Yeah.
understand that the type of masculinity that you wear is a very specific type that you choose, because you could, for
Yes.
example, if you were unconscious, very easily be replacing that with toxic masculinity.
The
You know what I
type of
mean?
masculinity that I choose to display to the public is the healthy kind. It's called chivalry, and it's not fucking dead. Okay, it's called manners and
You know,
polite.
chivalry is actually medieval combat code, I'll just have you know.
Well,
But
whatever. It's
yes.
called be fucking nice to people. Don't
It's
be a
true.
dick.
It's true.
Healthy masculinity.
I will always agree and stand healthy masculinity and non-toxic masculine spaces. Um, what was the other thing I was saying though? Right. So like, yeah, shapeshifting, it's not always like you break your bones and turn into a fucking bird and fly away.
I guess there are
I say
some that would argue and say, well, isn't that just acting? And it's like, well,
no. I mean, yes
acting
and
is a
no, right?
part of it. Like, there's a whole other element. There's another layer to it.
Okay, if you look at what actors do, very often, especially the good ones, they method act. They get into a role, they take it into their being. A lot of actors are like spiritual fucking changelings who like go out of their way to in-depth research something and shift their energies consciously to become the thing while they're doing it, and then shed it like a persona mask, right? It is absolutely an art of
And some
magistry
actors are
or
able to do that, and
magic.
some actors are not able to do that.
Yeah, and some actors are just your fucking Adam Sandler. Actually, no, he did Uncut Gems. He is forgiven and not just a one fucking note pony now.
One trick pony.
Yeah, because normally it's the guy Adam Sandler. You think
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore and fucking Billy Madison.
He's an
and
idiot
fucking,
and a moron, and
yeah, and he's playing a mentally handicapped person or like mentally disabled. So like it's fucking. Yeah.
some actors can redeem themselves, like. But yeah, no, there's definitely some actors where you're like, wow, you are just, and we recognize that, you know what I mean? Like, you are a master of your craft, you know, like, and that's why we have like awards and shit. But I don't know. I guess there would be some people like, oh, it's not magic, but there is a different element to it, especially when you
okay, but you know
try
what?
to work to become the thing, you know, to really embody the thing.
They're allowed to have their very wrong opinions because those are the same type of people who are also going to tell you that music isn't magic, and they're fucking wrong.
I don't
You know?
know how anyone could say that music, dance, things that like we can make music with our mouths, we dance with our bodies. Like that's literally something that we need no external thing to do. We can
Easy.
right, like we just make music, we make dance, we make magic. Like I don't see how anyone can not intrinsically link those two.
I
Doesn't
can
make
see.
sense.
It's easy. It's simply because it has an explanation. A scientific explanation is all something needs for someone to devalue it on a mystical level,
But
right?
what's the
It's
science
not.
behind I want to burst out into song?
And dance, endorphins. Endorphins and
Dance?
serotonin. Humans get serotonin
Yeah.
from being in union with each other, right?
Right. But like, why
Song
do we
is a
get those
way.
endorphins
Oh,
and
I can explain.
serotonin boost? You know what I
Song
mean?
is a
Like,
way that humans express emotion and connect with each other,
right.
and it's like we have an intrinsic need, and I very often shy away from air quotations human nature statements because there
Yeah.
is no objective human
Universal.
nature.
Yeah.
But there are universal human traits, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna die in the cold. Humans like to dance. Not every human's gonna dance, but in general, you cannot find me a time in history
Music
where
moves us in some way.
yeah, and you can never find a time in history where there is nobody dancing or liking
singing.
dancing or singing. It'll always be a thing, right?
Yeah.
So expression of the self is an intrinsic human nature thing, right? But because we can find scientific links and see what it does to us on a biochemical level, because we know that it makes us happy to do these things, right? So we can always just write it off as seeking the high that it provides in the serotonin and the biochemical explanation, right? Like this is also kind of the trap that a lot of people who worship science get into. They start thinking that the biological explanation for existence, like, you have a brain that's complex and it needs to be able to do threat assessments, so it evolved consciousness theory.
Right.
Like, it's pretty fucking basic to any magician, like any of us pretty much roll our eyes at like the basic super material only
It also causes
discredit
me.
stuff that doesn't fall into like super materialistic views, you know what I mean?
It also causes me a lot of depression when I go too far down that road, because I understand that yes, we are fleshy meat bags and we have chemical processes that happen constantly. I understand that, right? Like I understand the science of human existence and the science of human anatomy, biology, right? Sometimes, me personally, I get really too caught up in that. And I'm like, well, so what? I'm just a meat bag and I just exist and one day I will die. And then, like I can get really dark, I guess, and just really stuck, like, sort of like, there is no meaning, there is no purpose, it's just to be
Right.
a fleshy meat
But
bag and die,
also, think about how much that worldview of there is no meaning, there is no purpose, nothing really matters. Think about how much like the world powers of like the capitalist financial elite actually
Use that.
benefit from the hopelessness that it
Yeah.
incurs, right? If people feel like reality is intrinsically mystical, like they have agency and they can do things within like their life to affect change in a positive manner, people are going to do that, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to just like sit around and be passive and be hopeless if they actually have alternatives, right? So you have to very much cultivate this type of worldview and this type of belief system that only allows for that type of hopelessness, because everything else is a viable alternative to actually like creating some form of resistance. And like there's no way that people who actually set up the system and benefit from it being the way it is want it to be anything other than that, you know?
Yeah. And like the programming gets so deep with me sometimes that like, I have these moments where I just like I teeter between like everything is hopeless and pointless, and then this voice comes and says, "Yep, magic is real though, okay? So like you can shift, you can help, you can heal, you can do something about it." It's almost like every day I have to like prove and like remind myself that magic is here. It's like, I think that's kind of what comes into the idea of like developing a quote daily practice. It doesn't necessarily have to mean like I do this elaborate ritual or I do this prayer or I do this set of things. I think what it really is just waking up every day and knowing that magic is real, knowing that it is around you, and knowing that, you can do something about it. I'm not saying that you can snap your fingers and change your life. No, that's not the way magic works. Magic works through a very subtle set of processes, I guess. That's the most general way I could put it. But
you know what though, it will change your life in that way. It's just not a snap your fingers. You have to, just like I said earlier, you have to put in the work with anything, right?
Right. And that kind of brings me back to like where I was thinking we definitely need more books, classes, and resources on magic itself, like being a better magic practitioner. Like, for example, I could run an entire class or session workshop on just casting a circle.
Yeah.
Really feeling that energy, raising that energy, making that energy go around you. What does your circle look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Like I could teach a whole class just on that. And I think that's kind of like where I think my role is going to be, like, within the magic community, because like I don't fit into any particular box. Like, yes, I started out through Wicca, but I have a lot of friends in heathen circles, the chaos magicians. I have traditional witches. Like, I really play nice with everybody because I realize we're all just doing the same thing, right? Everyone just has a different flavor of the way they go about it. And I think like ultimately what I've been compiling is just a lot of knowledge about how magic is worked, like how to work it, how to work that energy. I think that's just kind of what my role is in the witch community, is to give people those foundational tools and then let them do whatever they need to do from that point on.
And like everybody's got their things that they're specialized at. Like I'm actually I'm basically like a rogue who cross-classed into being a witch, right? Like I have how do I put this? Like I said, I can do that stealth shit. I can just dress up like a construction worker and go some area and like lay down a sigil in a really deep and intricate manner that other people couldn't, simply because they don't have the cursory knowledge of how to like get through the bypassing barriers of like perception and doing those things in public. So like I don't want to be like, oh, look at me and toot my ego, but I'm pretty prolific as far as like public taggers of the linking sigil goes, because I can get fucking pretty much anywhere that I need to, including places that I really shouldn't. And I can lay down stuff that's really subtle and hidden in ways that nobody is ever going to find it because of my construction knowledge. Like I can layer something in between a piece of a fucking building so that it can't even be physically found, right? So I can just get into places and weave shit, and I'm very good as like a spider for the linking sigil who comes in and creates networks. I'm fucking super skilled at it. But like you asked me to go and lay down curse work to fucking annihilate somebody, and I'm gonna like tap the shoulder of fish, right?
Right. because it's not your area of expertise. Like, you could
No.
assist someone with the theory behind crafting their own.
Oh, of course.
thing.
And I can do a lot too with like setting up intrinsic networks that people can pull on with like ley lines and sigils. And like you've seen what my egregore work can do. And
Mhm.
I can actually like lay hands pretty fucking good on magic, like for combat, because I've practiced and studied a fair amount of it, right? Like
Mhm.
I say fair because I am not acting like I am that witch, because I am not, right? There
No one
are
is a
malefic
master
witches.
in
There
this
are, well, I
group
mean,
of people. No one is a master of any.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I'm pretty masterful about some shit, actually.
Masterful,
Like my
but I don't know. It's
my
for anyone
stealth
to
magic.
proclaim they're a master at anything.
I mean,
Everyone's always a student.
I suppose, right? But it's also like, as somebody who used to be like very good at carpentry, a master is never shy of stating they're a master. They do not find the need to boast, but also artificial humility is beneath them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've never met a true master of their trade who ever needed to shy away from an honest statement of what it was, you know?
Mhm.
So that's the way that I kind of view that, right? And I would say that I am quite practiced and skilled at my subterfuge magic, because like my man, I used to like fucking run drugs through like police roadblocks with dogs and shit. Like I've done some shit way back in the day, pre-transition, right? So
Back in the day.
back in the day, yeah. So I'm pretty good at that shit, but also you're never gonna like find a master of subterfuge out in the open. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Unless they proclaim themselves to be such.
Right.
And even then, you're about to talk about the time, aren't you?
I was about to talk about the time. We are at a little bit over an hour.
Do you know how I
what-
can tell? You have a very specific tone.
Yeah.
You always say it the exact same way.
At least we're consistent. At least we're but yeah, it is we are a little bit over time. And honestly, people really only listen to 20-30 minutes of this, so I don't know when they listen to the rest of it, if they listen to the rest of it. Okay.
They probably just turn it off and be like, "Ah, fuck these nerds."
Like, oh, fuck these guys. I guess I'll listen to the next. No, I like this conversation though. We talked a lot. We talked more about magic than we have in some previous episodes, which is good. I feel like, we finally have a bank account for the business. But we can finally start doing business online. So I'm really happy about that because it costs me $60 a month to run everything. So if I can make at least $60 a month off of merch, etc., that would be amazing.
Yay.
Yeah. So those things are going to be coming down the pipe pretty shortly. Any kind of like closing final thoughts that we wanted to end on?
More important than be gay, don't do crime is don't get caught. I can't believe people don't say that enough.
Don't get caught. Do witchcraft, don't get caught.
If you're gonna fuck around, then
Make sure you
maybe
don't
try
find out.
not to find out.
Yeah, don't find out. Fuck around, but don't find out.
Fuck around, but try not to find out.
Only commit one crime at a time, kids. That's why if I have weed in the car, which I do at all times, I never go above the speed limit, JK.
Yeah, right.
Hey, look. I will agree with that specific thing, but sometimes you gotta do more than one crime at a time. I'm just saying.
I think our very existence probably violates about 6 different crimes, so I don't know.
In different countries at any given moment, yeah.
Right.
Hey-o.
Ew. Alrighty, everyone. We will see you in the next one. It's been fun. We will see you later.
Get wrecked, bitches!
Bye.